the Monday's live stream. And today it's Mindset Monday. Since it's Monday, we wanted to do a Mindset Monday. Are we on? And can you see that on the other end? Can you tell? Hey, Lori. Lori. Are we on?
Oh, I didn't get any.
I am? Okay, all right, cool. So I just wanted to make sure. All right, guys, so let's get up and rolling. So today it's Mindset Monday. And since it's Mindset Monday, I thought we would talk about success versus failure, meaning, so this is my claim about real estate investing, right? Your success is guaranteed in terms of real estate investing, as that you can guarantee your success in terms of real estate investing. And here's why I can say that with 100% confidence. Now, I know what a lot of people are going to think. A lot of people are going to think, oh, Andrew, we're talking about Mindset Monday. We're talking about positivity. We're talking about that's not what I'm talking about, right? A lot of times in my own life, I tend to be a negative Nancy. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm just saying, like a lot of times, your positivity factor, negativity factor, sometimes 60% of that has to do with physiology, meaning everything could be great in your life, yet some people are just happier in that moment. They show it in terms of their how you look at them, and a lot of times other people are very serious, or you think as if they're pissed off, and they're not. So some of that has to do with your genetics and predisposition. We have to change that to be to basically at least act or seem that we're positive, excited about it. So that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about today is what determines success versus failure. And this is a series that we're going to do for the next 4 weeks. And what we're going to talk about is specifically, and I'm not talking from a positive mindset perspective. I'm talking from a something that I've tested. So I started doing Mastery, as some of you guys know, back in 2012, right? And I started investing in 2008. And whatever we talk about today is based on what we see. So in Mastery today, we have about 1,200 people, right? Of the 1,200 people, we have 20% of the people, I hate to admit this, but this is the God's honest truth. 20% of people, I couldn't get them to do anything. Didn't matter how much I tried. And they did nothing. About 60 to 80% of people do a lot of activity. About 45 to 50% of people do a very high amount of activity. So if I take the 20% out of the 1,200 people that are in Mastery, right, that are actually quote unquote active or buying real estate, about 800 people in Mastery own 18,000 plus rental properties, right? 18,000 plus. That number I used to know. At one time it was 16,910 or so, and obviously it's been growing ever since. It's 18,000 plus today. So if you think about it, we're not counting their flips, we're not counting the wholesales, we're just looking at the rental properties that are owned. So that's on 800 people. If you take 18,000 plus, it's a very high number. Now, obviously, what that means is the top 20, 30% of people in Mastery own a very large percentage of properties, meaning 30, 40, 50 properties is what they own, right? And the ones that talk about the least tend to be the most productive. But this is something that we have talked about whenever somebody comes to Mastery, right? Whenever you first interact with them, whenever the business consultants first talk to them during the 3-day, they're like, oh my God, we're excited. We want to join Mastery. We're interested. We have known about you guys, so on and so forth, conversations that happen. And a lot of times when somebody is making that big a commitment, if we're running Mastery, you feel a sense of obligation towards them, meaning what can we do to increase the success? Because if they just join Mastery, pay money to join Mastery, and do nothing, right? that is not only a failure on their part, that is a failure on my part and on my business's part, right? Because if we don't care about the success that somebody has within Mastery, we as a business, we're not serving our customer, which is somebody who comes to Mastery, in the appropriate way. We were taking money from somebody and we're not serving them. And that's not our job. Our job is not for tons of people to join Mastery, quote unquote, and then not do anything. Yet we know there's a certain percentage of people that are not going to do anything. Now, a lot of times you would think that it would be the person that has the least amount of resources, right? Maybe they don't have a lot of cash. Maybe they don't have the best credit, right? Maybe, they came from a background that was challenging. Maybe they had other things that were wrong. Yet that's not the case. So if we take the people that have the highest amount of success, and by success, I don't mean people who have done one or two flips, made 30, 40, 50, 100, 150, $200,000 in Mastery. That's not how we measure success. In Mastery, we measure success based on how many properties, meaning how much assets do you own because you came around us, right? Meaning if I'm around you, and we're friends, you're a part of Mastery, am I enriching your life? If I'm not enriching your life in some positive way, and we're talking today in terms of business, then I'm not a good person for you to be around. Because if I can't either basically teach you something, learn something from you, right? We don't end up liking the time that we spend together, and then we don't profit because of it, then why are we spending the time together? So when I'm talking about success today, I'm talking about it from a basis of that, what is that one factor that separates people that we see come to Mastery? There are certain people that have come to Mastery that you talk to them, they have zero properties. Yet because of their attitude, you're like, something, this person is going to make it. And then there are other people that have come to Mastery and I've had to literally go, oh my God, I don't know what we're going to do with them. And it's not they're nice people or not so nice people. That's not the factor, right? It's not based on if they're, suddenly positive or if they're negative, right? Even if you're not the most positive person, you can be massively successful. I generally, throughout my life, have not been the most quote unquote positive person, because sometimes I tend to be a lot more of a realist, and doesn't matter what I achieve, right? I tend to look at, oh my God, I'm nowhere, right? I use the negative emotions to push myself forward. I'm not saying that's a good thing, because a lot of times I forget to be grateful for the things that I should have. I should be immensely grateful. I mean, the life that I live today, right? It's a dream life for me. Right? I mean, I couldn't even have dreamed at one time in my life. I always wanted to achieve these types of things, but yet owning a couple hundred properties plus, right? Being able to be around so many successful people, right? Financially, what I've been incredibly blessed with. So, I mean, there's nothing that I can really say. I'm very fortunate. Fortunately, I have good health. Right? I had a great set of parents. There's not anything I can put my finger on. Yet, a lot of times I will turn that negative, oh, I'm not where I need to be. And I use that as a motivating factor that I'm not good enough, so I need to be better, right? So that's not the motivation I'm talking about. What I'm talking about today is this, that who are the people that succeed, right? And we've identified 4 different factors. The number one factor that we identified, or one of the most important factors that we identified, was people who come to Mastery, right? Or people who treat real estate as a business rather than a hobby. That's one of the most important factors that separates people who succeed versus who don't. So what do I mean by that? So what happens is, a lot of times, that when people get into real estate. Why do they get into real estate? Because they have a desire to do something, right? Some people get into stocks, some people maybe do crypto, some people maybe buy something, right? There is a certain percentage of people that get into real estate, and when they get into real estate, if they have the mindset that, hey, I'm going to try this out as a hobby, right? This is what their mindset is. Guess what happens? It remains a hobby. So I'll give you an example of my own personal failure, right? So some of you guys know, a lot of people don't. So once in a while, I like to smoke a cigar, right? So used to be, I had a dear friend that initially invested with me, and at the end of the workday, I was a real estate agent, and I would go to his cigar store, big, huge store, would sit, smoke cigars, talk about business. So it was kind of a hobby. Both of us shared the business thing. He put in $20,000, I put in $20,000, and that was the start of how I started investing. I did all the work, he did none of the work. So what happened was that he was successful in that particular business. For me, that business was a hobby, and I always wanted to be able to afford, as a quote-unquote hobby, a big cigar store, fancy lounge, big, huge walk-in humidor. It was like cool. Some people will say, oh my God, I would love to own a bar, right? Man, I'll have all these people. I can take my friends over there. I'll be cool. And this is what I did. What I did was this. I took a hobby and I turned it, quote unquote, tried to turn it into a business. And this is a very dangerous exercise, and I'll bring it back to real estate. So I buy a 4,000 square foot property, and this 4,000 square foot property, about $500,000 or whatever we paid for it, 600,000, we paid for this building. And then we go ahead and pour another 400,000 in some product, $150,000 in product, about 300,000 or so in build out. By the time the build out is done, right? Sometimes going and basically grabbing a cigar, talking business with a bunch of friends, having a good time, going home. That became a noose around my neck, which was this bloody store with $40,000 property taxes, right? I'm in the real estate business. I'm not in the retail business, meaning a retail customer, a store that is open from, say, 9:30 a.m. in the morning till 11 o'clock at night. That's not the business that I'm in. And guess what I did? I took a hobby and I tried to turn it into a business. I didn't look at it that, is this going to be my main business? Or even if it's going to be a side business, I didn't look at it as a business. And even before the store was open, because it almost took a year to do the build out for that bloody thing, it became a noose around my neck. Even today, we own the store. Yet we don't run the store because guess what? I had no interest in running it. I say that story, and at least I can laugh about it, right? Because at the end of the day, when it's all said and done and we sell the business, right? Somebody's working on buying the business for the last 5 or 6 years. They're running the store, so on and so forth. They pay us rent on the real estate side, and on the business side, gradually they're paying the business off, right? But the challenge with that is this, that I'm going to lose about to the tune of 400,000 in that particular business. Now I can talk about it today because in the big relation of things, it's not a very big thing. Yet I entered that business as a hobby. So what happens is this, for a lot of people that we see that don't do well with business, with real estate, is this, that they look at it as a hobby. Well, I'm going to try it out, right? Meaning they think about, okay, I do something else and I'm going to try this out. Or they don't understand that this is a business. They look at it as, well, maybe I'm going to try it and maybe if it will work, right? See, when I started investing, maybe was not an option for me. And the reason maybe was not an option was I was selling real estate. I wanted to get into investing for a very long time, since I was 19 years old, and I finally started investing at the age of 32, right? And maybe was not an option because I could not afford to fail. What I meant by that was not because of positivity or negativity. Financially, I could not afford to fail. I mean, that was not an option. It was okay if I didn't make as much money, but failing was just not an option because I had borrowed $20,000 from Fred, and $20,000 was mine. Actually, it wasn't mine. It was from Chase Bank that I had taken as a home equity line of credit. Right? So I had a little bit of equity in the townhouse I used to live in. I took that $20,000 and put out as a down payment. and then I borrowed 20,000. And I did not want to fail, certainly with not Fred's money, because I respected him. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to end up a failure. So what we see is this: a lot of times when people come into the business and they look at the business as a hobby, you're setting yourself up for a failure, because real estate investing cannot be a hobby, right? You have to look at it that, hey, this is going to be a business, and not that from day one you're going to suddenly start minting money. That's not how it works. But you have to look at it that it is not a hobby. See, real estate investing is a science. What do I mean by that? I mean this, that investing, what does that mean, right? This has nothing to do with the market, mind you, right? Now, if you're doing building in the real estate business, so this is something what a lot of people don't understand, right? And this is very important to understand. I don't need you to be positive about everything, because too much positivity hurts you, right? So we we have a logo, right? And that what it basically stands for is that it's great to be passionate, it's great to be excited, but too much excitement with the wrong strategy, right? You're going to end up straight down the tube. What I mean by that is this, right? Somebody might say, Andrew, rock climbing is a very dangerous sport. Well, it's a very dangerous sport if you're not anchored properly. Meaning, if you have a really, really, really good anchor, a hook, right at the top of it, which is very, very, very nicely secured. Rock climbing is not a very dangerous sport. Why? Because it may look dangerous, yet statistically, it's not very dangerous. Why? Because you're tethered in really in a proper manner, and you're double roped, right? So it may look dangerous, but it's not actually dangerous. What happens to a lot of people when they come to real estate, what they do is they don't understand the basics. What they do is they say, hey, I'm going to invest in real estate. And what they end up doing is they end up buying properties at a retail price, meaning they'll buy a property that is worth $150 and they'll pay $100 for it. Then they pay $100 for it and they're like, oh my God, it's worth $150. Great. They plan on spending $30 and they end up spending $40, $45. Well, guess what happens? They just paid retail for that particular property. Now what happens is they end up, if the market turns a little bit, suddenly they're in a position where the property is, you have more in the deal than what the property is worth. And then they say, well, I would have succeeded, but I failed because the market turned. Guys, most of the time, unless you're doing building where you have a year, 2 years, 3 years build out phase, right? In most stuff that you do in real estate, if you're buying especially smaller properties and you're putting them back on the market, even if the market turns in 6 months, what is going to turn by? 3%, 4%, 5%, 6%? I mean, think about it. Even on a $300,000 property, even if the market drops by 6%, let's just say it drops by 7%, what is that? Right? 7 times 3 would be 21. So it'll turn by $21,000 that it doesn't work for you. Still, you should never, never, never lose money in that deal. Why? See, real estate, and I've said this many, many times, is the greatest equalizer. Again, hear me carefully. Real estate is the greatest equalizer. What I mean by that is this. What does equalizer mean? That if you play any sport, right? If you do a lot of other things in life, you want to become a doctor, you want to become a lawyer, you want to do certain things in life, you need to have the brains to be able to pass a class in biochemistry. You need to be able to pass a class in anatomy. And I tried doing that. It was I was not cut to that grade. It's not that I didn't work. I tried to memorize all that stuff. I just could not get through. Some of that is based on your basic genetics that you're born with. The good part about real estate investing is this. It's not based on how tall you are, how short you are, if you're handsome or not so handsome, if you're skinny or if you're fat or if you're in between, right? It's based on basic, simple principles that are the same for everybody. So now you may be thinking, you're saying, Andrew, you're saying, is it Is everybody the same? No, you're not, right? We're all the similarity ends that we're all born butt naked. And that's where similarity ends, right? And I didn't say butt naked upside down because it depends if you had a natural birth versus you had a C-section. C-section, they just pop you out, right? But that's where similarity ends. And why similarity ends there? Because your parents are not the same as my parents. Somebody else's parents may be a lot better economically than yours or mine, or they may be a lot worse economically than, and that's where similarity ends. Yet the opportunity that is provided by real estate is the same for all of us. Now, you may not be in the same position like when I started. If somebody had a great multi-unit deal of a 100-unit complex, didn't matter how great the deal was. Neither did I have the knowledge, nor did I have the financial wherewithal to be able to take advantage of that particular opportunity. But could I learn the knowledge? See, the cool part about real estate is this, right? Which does not apply to sports, which does not apply to a lot of other things. A lot of sports, you could be the hardest working human being, right? But yet, if you don't have a certain level of genetic ability, you may perform really well in the on your high school level. You could be the best athlete, get all sorts of accolades at high school level. You could even make it to the college level and get a lot of accolades there. But yet to make it in the pros, not only do you need some ability to be able to work hard, but you need a certain level of genetics to be able to play and to be able to perform at that level. Just your desire and incredible work ethic, only that is not going to do it. You need some extraordinary level of your ability that you were born with, right, to be able to perform at that level. Whereas with real estate, that's not the case, because anything that you do in real estate is based on a learned skill set, right? It's based on something that you learn. And learning is a process that nobody can take away from you. It's not based on how much money you have. It's not based on your credit score. It's certainly not based on if you're tall, if you're slim, if you are fat, or if you don't feel too good about yourself. Meaning, if somebody tomorrow showed up into my office like, hey, Andrew, I don't know you from Adam, but I got an incredible deal. Do I care if they're poor, if they're incredibly rich, if they're handsome, not handsome, short, tall, indifferent, right? Doesn't make any difference to me. I'm not worried about them, but if they can give me a great deal that I can make money on, fantastic. I'm willing to compensate them in relation to the deal that I can do with that given property. And I might not be the right person for them. Yet what I'm trying to say is this, that real estate investing is not based on a some sort of imaginary thing that it may work or it may not work. See, real estate investing works every single time. The question becomes is, are you doing the right activity at the right time, using the right strategy that's going to work in that particular moment in time? It all goes back to the initial thing that we started with, that are you looking at real estate as a business, meaning as a science that I'm going to do a step by step process to get a net outcome? Or are you just trying your hand at it as a hobby? See, if you're trying just your hand at it as a hobby, guess what's going to happen? Your results are not going to be predictable because they're not based on a step by step approach which takes the risk into account. Meaning, if you're just going to basically go at it, it's pure dumb luck. And here's what happens with pure dumb luck in real estate, right? Most people, this is basic statistics, most people will not be in business 2 to 5 years from today. And I say that for this reason, because sometimes what happens is people come to real estate. They buy a property. Like if you bought a property the last couple of years, and you could literally have screwed it up, completely screwed it up. But because the market cooperated and the market went straight up, What happened? There were a lot of people who were doing incredibly dumb things. Yet, even if they messed up the buy price, even if they messed up the rehab price, because the market was going so high, they could put the property and overprice the property and still get it sold. And their statement was, see, Andrew, I knew I was going to make it. And they would make it on the first one. They actually make a profit. On the second one, they make a profit. Why this happens, I don't know, right? See, most people get washed out on the first one. But some people are lucky enough to make it on the first one and on the second one. And then guess what happens? There's a real estate God. If you don't know about this real estate God, you need to be familiar with it, which is called, it's your luck. And if you do too many things where you're testing your luck, it will catch up with you. And when it does, it's going to have a very bad result. Meaning that they get away with one, they get away with two, and the third one, what they do is they're like, oh my God, if it worked on one that was a couple $100,000, the second was $300,000, I'm going to go big. And when they go big, guess what happens? Suddenly that luck catches up with them and it kicks them in places where you don't want to get kicked. Meaning that they lose everything that they made on deal number one and deal number two, and they end up at zip zero. See, that is not a business. Business means that I have a specific business plan. It's based on who I am, how much risk that I can take or not take, and then I base my actions based on that. Because if I'm just doing things that are pure based on luck, I am setting myself up on failure. That's the difference between somebody who gets into real estate, looks at the real estate as a business, meaning there is a specific game plan that has been tested against the risk factors, versus somebody who says, hey, this is a hobby and I'm just going to test it out. I'm just going to see, let's see what happens. And if it works, it works. Guys, that is a very dangerous proposition if you're going to go that way. And the reason I say that is this, that today we've had over 1,200 people through Mastery, and the success rate, you can compare any program in the country. I challenge you about this, right? The success rate when you take apples and apples and compare those and the amount of money people started with, Mastery has 100% the highest individual success rate you will see, right? Of people who started with equal things. Why? Because number one, it's a very high touch type of a program where we basically make sure that people do step one, step two, step three, step four, step five, right? And we get a very high result. Yet still, I can't get 20% of people to do anything, right? I mean, God couldn't get them to do anything. We're just mere human beings. But what I'm trying to say that one of the key factors, and there are 4 of them that we identified, and factor number 1 in that was treating your business, treating your real estate like a business versus treating it like a hobby. That's all for today. Behind me is Burr Cashflow Investors, which is the Facebook group that we started, and the intent of that Facebook group. If you haven't joined, make sure that you join. And it's a private group, and the goal of that particular group is to take everybody that is buying properties, rehabbing them, renting them out, refinancing them, and then repeating the process, is to build a massive community, not just in Chicago, but throughout the United States. That's our goal, and bring in value-added speakers. They're not selling anything. They're not pitching any product. The goal is for you and I and all of us together to have a place where we can all learn and take our learning to the next level. Having said that, we will see you on Wednesday, same time, same place, 5:30, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good day.